Mike Zito is an American guitarist, singer, record producer, and songwriter from St. Louis, Missouri. He is a co founder of Royal Southern Brotherhood, which includes Cyril Neville, Devin Allman, Charlie Wooten, and Enrico Scott. Zito has numerous Blues Music Award honors under his belt. He is a co owner of Gulf Coast Records and has released several hits, including Big Mouth, Judgment Day, Gone to Texas, and Death Row, amongst several others. I was able to sit down with him and have a good, honest discussion about his life, career, songwriting, and the management side of the music business. So, without further ado, here is that interview. Okay, so you began playing the guitar at the age of 5. Why did you pick the guitar?
Yeah, it was probably more like 7. Not that that's a huge difference. No one in my family played music, and I really never heard guitar before. My parents were a lot older, so I only heard big band music. And but I was at a friend's house. I remember because it was the summer of '77, and he had an older brother, and the older brother had bought the new Van Halen record, and I really never even hardly heard rock and roll much. And when I was passing his bedroom, Eruption was playing, and I mean I just never heard anything like it. I thought it was like a spaceship sound, or and I asked the brother. I said, "What is that?" And he said, "That's Van Halen." And I said, "But what is that?" And he was like, "It's a guitar." And I thought, "A guitar?" And he was, "Yeah, like an instrument, the guitar." And so, I just ran home. I was like, "Hey, I need a guitar." Um, I didn't realize you had to play it. I thought if you just, whatever it was, you plug it in and it makes that sound.
Right.
Uh, and it did not make that sound when I got it. So that embarked on a continuing long journey of trying to figure out how to play the guitar.
Yeah. Did you like pick up scales or did you get teachers later on?
Oh no, no. No one knew anything about music in my family. It was like a little starter guitar. I didn't have any lessons. We didn't have much money, and so I didn't even know how to tune the guitar until I got to high school. And there were other kids that played guitar, and they actually like could play the guitar. I was playing it, but I don't know what the hell I was doing. I was probably just tuned to some kind of open chord and moving my finger up and down it, trying to, just sing and make noise. But I got to high school about 14 and met kids that had actually had guitar lessons, and then they told me, "Yeah, you don't know how to play guitar." And then they showed me how to tune it, and then that ruined everything. So then I had to get a couple of lessons. So, somewhere in there, yeah, I had a few lessons. My a side note that's fun, my very first guitar teacher when I was 14, I took 2 lessons from him. His name is Rich Fortis, and he's been in Guns N' Roses now for 20 years.
That sounds like a hell of a teacher.
Yeah, but at the time he was 17, I was 14, and he was like a hot shot guitar player kid around town. So
Huh.
yeah, so I did my best to learn. I've never been very fully educated. I mean, I got lessons here and there. I got a little bit of music lessons from a guy early on, and but I worked at a music store that was in my neighborhood, and I worked there for 10 years, and that's really where I learned to. Just all kinds of great musicians came in the store, and I just watched everybody and asked them questions, and started playing in bands, and I'll figure it out on the job kind of guy. So
Right.
I go jump into it and go, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I think I can figure this out, and, which is the way I still do things.
Speaking of your teens, at least in your late teens, I can't remember which article, but they described you as a fixture on the local St. Louis music scene. How did you end up breaking into the space?
Yeah, well, I think I was 18 or 19. Well, I was in bands in high school, but not, we just played parties and dances. But when I got at the music store, I got into, I met older, people in their 30s. I mean, I was 18, so I met people in their 30s and 40s and 50s that were like, that's what they did. They just played music for a living, and they played around St. Louis, and they, played on the weekends, or they played 3 or 4 nights a week. And I mean, I never knew that was possible. I never knew that was a thing. So that was the next level of, that's what I want to do. I don't want to, my dad worked at Anheuser-Busch. I was adamant about, I'm not working at the brewery. Like, I don't want to do a job like that. And so when I realized that, hey, maybe you could make enough money to have a living if you just play music. So, I started doing that. And I mean, again, from probably the age of 18 or 19 all the way to 32 years old. So, I mean, eventually I was playing all the time.
Right.
Always had bands. And somewhere in there, I went from cover bands to, I want to play my own music. Mostly because I couldn't play the cover songs very well. I didn't know how to, didn't know how to play the guitar that well. So I could just do my own thing. I couldn't learn the songs right. So the bands didn't want to hire me because I didn't play them, And so I thought, well, if I start my own band and write my own songs, nobody can tell me I'm doing it wrong.
Sounds like a surefire way to get your own music out there as well.
Yeah. I mean, it all come around, I just start doing my thing, and it's better that way.
Yeah. Do you remember the first time you played for a crowd?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I performed in front of audiences all the way back when I was 4 and 5 years old, but I sang. I always sang. That was what I was actually good at. I just loved the guitar. So, I mean, I sang at talent shows, and I did theater, so I've been in front of an audience since I was a little kid. I think, in high school, I played some events in front of people where I played guitar, but I remember, like, first time I played a bar, I was like 18, and it was me and a bunch of what I thought were old people. They were in their 40s, which if you're 18, those are old people,
Mm-hmm.
And they had to sneak me in because I wasn't 21. And I remember thinking, this is great. Like, everybody danced, and they were all partying and hollering, and I was hooked.
After that, did it become easier for you to find more shows to play, or was it kind of like the same thing?
Yeah, no, it was, early on, it was like I was in other people's bands.
Right.
I learned, I would get hired to be the guitar player and play with them for a year or so, and learn a lot, and just, and after several years of doing that, then, you get to know the clubs and the places to play and the people to talk to get booked. And, it's just like all of this, it's a process. It was a process over a decade in St. Louis to get established and get a name and get a following and have people want to book you. And, and it's a whole exact same thing when you go on a national level.
Right. What were some things that you picked up from that type of experience that you still kind of carry throughout your career now?
Well, that, we're doing a job, for one. I mean, I'm an artist. I write and play, and I do that. But also that I think it's probably from growing up kind of, poor, working class, watching my dad work at the brewery. You go in and you do your job. And so those bands that worked around town that were like always working, that had work, they may not have even been like, oh, they're the best band. But like, they were organized, and they were responsible, and they showed up on time, and they practiced, and they came in and delivered. And that always has stuck with me. Like, we can, you're never going to be the best guitar player or the best singer or whatever. But a guy told me years ago, he said, I'm not the best, but I'm the best that shows up.
Mm. So, okay, organization, responsibility, and consistency. That definitely sounds like the right things to take out of experiences.
And it's not, it's not common in the arts or in music. That's not always common. Certainly not growing up through the rock and roll heyday, where it's like all this party, party. Of course, I went through that whole phase, and that was, a whole other thing. But, it's not, musicians get a bad rap as, lazy and don't show up on time. And I've just always found that if I can work circles around people and get more done.
Hmm. So before you mentioned that you worked at a music store and Chuck Berry came in, and as we both know, he's huge. What were your thoughts when you
Yeah.
like first saw him come in there?
Yeah, I remember meeting him the first time, and really I met his son first, who is Charles. His name is also Charles Berry, Charles Jr. And he's a little more my age. He's maybe 7 or 8 years older than me. And he came in the store because in the '90s, his dad had always had another guitar player, and that guy retired. And so he told his son, then, like, you need to come play in the band. So his son came in the store and was looking to buy a Fender Stratocaster. He was real nice, and then everyone was like, "Oh, that's Chuck's son," And of course, I knew who Chuck Berry was. I mean, you grew up in St. Louis, you know who he is. One of the guys at the store played drums with him. He did a show the last Wednesday of every month for maybe 30 years at a place called the Duck Room at Blueberry Hill. He played out the last Wednesday of every month for forever. And so a lot of different musicians played with him. But when he came in, I'd never met him or seen him. So his son was there. And then there was, what looked to me at first was an old man in a members only jacket and an admiral's hat, sitting there. And he said, "Hey, this is my dad, Chuck." And I said, "Hello." And I remember like I guess when they left, like, okay, so that was Chuck Berry. Like, because he was just like, "Hey, this is my dad, Chuck."
Yeah.
And he was very unassuming, you know. So yeah, it was good. And he's, he knew that music store had been around since the '50s. He knew the people at the store, and he came in a couple, several other times, and then I got to open up for him at the Duck Room. A lot of the bands did in St. Louis, that you get to go open up the show for him. So I got to do that a few times, and that was nice. And, but I was always, he was always friendly, but just kind of quiet to himself. And, "Hey, how are you? Nice to see you." But his son would like come in and hang out, and that's the kind of store it was. Guys would just come hang out. So all these years later, even coming to doing the Chuck Berry record, that's who I called. I called Charles and said, "Hey, I think I'm gonna do this record, and is this a bad idea?" Kind of looking for his blessing, and he said, "I think it's a great idea."
Yeah, and you ended up getting Junior's son,
His,
Charles Berry the
his
third, right?
yeah, his son, and that was one of the things. I had my son. My son is the one that turned me on. He said, "Have you seen Charlie the third? Have you ever met him?" No, I hadn't met him. I was already gone from St. Louis. Well, he's on Instagram and he's playing guitar. You should check him out. He sounds pretty good. And so I just started following him, watching him, encouraging him. Sounds good. So when I called his dad, he said, "Man, you got to get Charlie." I said, "Well, that was my next question. Man. We got to get Charlie on there." And I thought, well, nothing better than doing St. Louis blues.
Right. And so that album, it's the tribute that featured, it was 21 other guitarists, and it was titled Rock and Roll, a tribute to Chuck Berry. And, just for namesake, it has it has like a whole bunch of people: Walter Trout, Tinsley Ellis, Charlie, as we just mentioned, Kirk Fletcher, amongst so many other great guitarists. And it was a great album. What was the
Thank you.
process like getting so many of these guitarists together? Or maybe not together, but working with them?
Yeah, yeah. That's always the good question, because that's of all the records I've made, and I've made almost 20 albums. That's the hardest record I ever worked on. And that's an undertaking and a labor of love because, one, you cannot get all those people together. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And if you want to get them, if you want to get Sonny Landreth and Joe Bonamassa and all these different people to play on your record, you got to give them a lot of leeway, time-wise, because everybody's working. And this is all before COVID. So everybody's working, and you got to give them a big window. So, you know, I probably worked on that record for over 2 years total. But when it come to, like, now it's time to actually record this record, we went in January and we recorded 20 songs. And, I mean, just me and my group. And we recorded all the tracks with just rhythm guitar, piano, bass, and drums, and my vocal. Now, some of these guests are going to sing and play guitar. Some are only going to play guitar. So then you got to go back through and go, okay, all right, so Charlie Berry's only going to play guitar. So I just leave the solos open, and I just tell them to, you know, leave a space for him to play his solos, and vice versa with all these artists. Or maybe if they're going to sing, then I have to plan ahead of time. Okay, I'm going to sing this verse, and then you sing this verse. Or I might just tell them, hey, sing the whole song, and then send it back to me. And so that's what we have to do. We have to take the songs, send it to all of the artists. Everybody gets the song. It was January, and I gave them until August or end of July to turn in. That's how long they got, 6-7 months. Because, you know, I mean, a lot of the guys, they're doing you a favor, you know. They're playing for, you know, and we don't have $1 million, so they're not playing for the money they're worth. Some of them won't take money. Mm-hmm. So you got to work with them on the time. So we give them this long window, and then they go and do their parts, and then they send all their parts back. So over 7 months, those songs are coming in every which way. There's no order. You know, somebody gets it done right away. 2 weeks later, somebody gets it done the next month. Somebody gets it done 5 months. You're just getting them all in. So every time we get a handful in, then I got to go back in the studio. And I produced the record. So I got to go back in the studio and put their parts into the song. And then go, okay, so we're singing together. So, you know, Luther Dickinson sings. Then I go in and I put my vocals with his vocals, take his vocals out on a couple verses, and try to make it. And sometimes I have to sing it again to kind of match their energy, their range, how they're doing it, so that it makes them sound good. And I want it to sound like we're there,
right,
together. You know, it's quite an ordeal. I mean, it was a thing, and then the same with the guitar. I mean, you got to go through with all the guitar and work on that and get it to match. You know, when Joe Bonamassa sends you back his guitar track on Wee Wee Hours, I mean, it was so over the top. I have to go back and re-sing the entire song because I was singing it really laid back, and it doesn't match, you know. So it was, on my end, it was a lot of work. So it took, 8 months or so to get it all put together. And it was another, like a whole year and a year before of planning and getting everybody in. It was very long and time consuming, and I think it turned out great. I'm really, really proud of it, and really thankful that everyone did it with me. And I thought it was a great record. And, most of the Berry family was really happy, like they were happy with it. And, I think it's encouraged Charlie kind of go on, and they kind of have started some of the family members doing their own Chuck Berry tribute shows and out playing and doing stuff. So it was a good thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check him out. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to listen to Charlie, but after hearing him on the song, I was like, this guy's pretty good.
Yeah, he's very young, so he's the best thing is he's really into it.
How old
And
is
his
he?
dad was never really into it, like 22.
Oh, wow, that is young.
Yeah, yeah. And you know his father. I mean, if you can imagine, your father's Chuck Berry. Hey, you may not want to play guitar.
Yeah,
You know,
there's definitely some big
his
shoes
dad.
to fill.
Yeah, right.
How did you figure out which songs to put on that album?
Well, yeah, it's you're talking about a catalog of like 100 songs,
Yeah,
and uh, it's easy that a lot of people go, oh, pick all these songs nobody's ever heard. But in the big scheme of things, it's like, well, why do they want to hear songs they've never heard? They want to hear songs they know. I mean, you got to record the hits, and so I just made a big list of songs, and then when I got the artists that were committed, I would go through and go, I had in mind a song for them already, and I'd give them two choices in hopes that they'd pick the one that I thought worked best for them. And 9 times out of 10, they always did. They always picked we were on the same page. So it kind of worked out that way. One of the guitar players is Alex Skolnick, and he is the guitarist for the metal band Testament. So there's an odd choice, right? I mean, but I wanted to get interesting guitar players to have different interesting takes on Chuck Berry's influence. So, and he's a good friend of mine. So we did Downbound Train, which just made sense, which was this it's like kind of a heavy rockabilly song that Chuck does that's talking about the devil on a train that's going to hell. And I was like, well, this guy's in a metal band. I don't know, and
it
he's
kind
a
of fits the
shredder,
bill.
and it all kind of tells a story. And so Havana Moon with Sonny Landreth, I just kept hearing Sonny's beautiful slide guitar sounding like steel drums, and just kind of put things together like that.
Right. Are there any others you wish were able to be included?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, songs and artists, and
Mhm.
and I mean, you could do a whole other. There's so many songs you could do a whole other album. You could do a volume 2.
A side B.
And yeah, I mean, you certainly could. And artists, I mean, there were a lot of artists that I just didn't have room. So it would have been a double album. And there were a lot of artists that I asked that wanted to do it, and then they couldn't do it. The time-wise, it didn't work out for them. I mean, the list of artists I asked to play that didn't necessarily say no, it just didn't work out. If you could get them now, you have a whole other great record.
Yeah. So one thing that you mentioned is you were producing this album yourself. How did you initially start to record your own records? If that makes, I kind of worded that a little bit weird, but what was the process like for producing your own record in the beginning?
Well, it's what I started doing back in the 90s to begin with. And it goes all the way back to high school, again, to not being able to play songs well. So I just always wrote my own songs, and I would rent a 4-track recorder and a drum machine, and make my own mixtapes of my songs, and mix it down and share it with everybody, with my friends. And so then I did the same thing in the late 90s, just writing songs and trying to, let's go record these on our own and put them out. So I did that for so long. There's really not much difference other than better equipment and better musicians. And, hopefully I've gotten more experience and gotten better. So I'm not always. I don't always want to be the guy to produce myself. Um, Sometimes I do, and sometimes I want to. I want what I call the treatment. I want to
Hmm.
be the artist, and I want somebody else to come in and bring me ideas and tell me what to do, and you know, uh, bring something new to the table. So it just depends on the project um, and what we're doing, what the approach is going to be. Um, but I think sometimes I just get an idea so ingrained that like I know what this is going to sound, what I want it to sound like. I know what I want to do, and it's going to take too long. If I bring somebody else in, they're going to have their own ideas, and I'm not interested in that. Say on this particular record, so it's just a lot of times out of necessity and to get the work done.
Right. So did that experience with producing your own records, and then eventually you signed with Eclecto, it made things a little bit simpler. But did producing your own records independently help you establish Gulf Coast Records? Did that make it a little easier
Yeah,
for you?
absolutely, and that's the whole process was like that. I mean, when I started to get hired to produce other artists, it was around 2010, and I was like, well, I don't know if I can do this, and that was with Roof Records, and he said, well, you used to make your own records all the time, and they were great.
Hmm.
You can do it, and I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So I just started to produce other records for people, and it just kind of all was like, well, we used to put them out. Now I've learned this business so much from being on a couple of record labels. Again, just like going back to starting a band and finding the places to play and the people to know. In this business, you make friends, you learn how this thing works and how to do it, and just the same way, it's like, well, if we have our own label, I don't have to ask somebody else if I can do this.
Yeah, it
I
sounds like
can
you have a lot of freedom.
I can just do it, and I can kind of follow what I think works. And again, I'm not always right. I mean, sometimes I need help, um, but I love the freedom to be able to, you know, kind of put into play my ideas or my dreams of what the next records will be, and I don't have to go ask someone, can I do this, or mostly it's can I have the money to do this?
Right.
that's that's what you have to do with the other labels, and when we have our own, it's like, well, okay, that's what I'm going to do, so I know I'm going to keep this budget aside because that's what I want to do. I mean, it's kind of a dream come true for sure.
And when was Gulf Coast Records established?
2018, towards the end of 2018, myself and I had a partner. His name is Guy Hale,
Hmm.
and we've been friends a long time. And he had just newly retired and wanted to do something. And he's a writer. He writes books and songs, and like a lyricist. And so we decided to start, this record label with the intent of kind of being small and a startup, just to kind of help uh, small artists get started. Because I was actually still on Roof Records at the time. It was just kind of going to be like a little side thing, that just within 6 months turned into, oh, okay, like this isn't going to be small. This is going to be big. Like we're going to go all in. And I really didn't start it out that way. I really didn't go into it like, ooh, I can't wait to find a whole bunch of more work to do for not a lot more money. Like, I just wanted to play guitar. But once we got into it, it was like, all right, either we're doing this or we're not doing it. And,
Yeah.
I said, well, we're doing it.
Yeah, it's definitely not like a small project. Not only are you signed to it, but Albert Castiglia, Louisiana's LaRue, um, odd lane.
Yeah,
Like it's there's no way it's a small project anymore. These people are
no,
it's growing, and it's only been four
yeah,
years. I can't believe that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a thing now, and it's we've just like everything else, like learned the hard way. Just jump in with both feet, hope for the best, and made decisions that now I go, okay, well, I'm definitely not going to do that again. That was not good. Or hey, this works, and so every year we get a little more savvy and a little more, kind of. But it's definitely in the long haul now. I mean, there's
Yeah, I'd imagine
we're
so.
we're in it, and I plan to do it. It's I don't know that I'll ever get rich, um, but it's my 401k is what I call it. I'm going to build this catalog, and hopefully in 25 years I can, it'll be worth something. So
I can't imagine it won't be worth something. It's like I didn't even know that some of these artists were signed to it until I started looking it up. But I've been listening to a few of them for a few weeks and playing them on my show, and then when I saw them signed to this, I'm like,
thank
oh
you.
wow.
Well, thank you. That's great. That's great.
So a little bit of a transition. When did you first start developing your own songs, and what kind of led up to doing that?
Um, well, I mean, my mom wrote poetry all her life, and so she wrote a lot, and so I did too. Um, and so I just always, like I said, even being a kid, beating on the guitar and not really having any idea of what I was doing, I was trying to make my own songs, you know. So I've been doing that since I was a little kid, and even and in high school when we had bands, I wrote the songs and would bring them, and then we would learn them and go play the songs. It's just something that I've done. I don't think I'm like a world class Nashville songwriter or anything, but again, sometimes out of necessity because I need material to sing and to play, and so I've just been doing it a long time um, since but really before I could probably play the instrument well. Just writing my songs. And, as I got older and then got that first record deal, I realized, when I was really hyper focused on the guitar, and then the record label was like, hey, we like your voice, and these are good songs. I was like, oh, okay. So you're not going to be the best guitar player, and there's lots of great guitar players out here. They're not all very good songwriters, and they maybe don't sing very good. So maybe if you would continue to focus on the songs and the singing, you can keep playing your guitar, you know. So it's kind of always been there, but I think it became more of a focus once I got on the national scene, and that was more what people were interested in from me, was the singing, the songwriting. Um, so I try to just continue to keep that the focus of what I'm doing. And if the song is good, then the guitar playing's fun. Like, you got something to work with. Because I'm not a virtuoso, Eric Gales, Yngwie Malmsteen or whatever. I can't do that, you know. But I can play guitar in my songs. So
Yeah,
my theory always is I like to play guitar. So if I write songs and sing songs, then I get to play guitar. Like that's my reward for writing and singing.
yeah. Something you're
I get
pretty
to
well
play.
known for is that when it comes to writing like, songs or lyrics, anything, you want it to be honest and you have to mean it. Do you think that's kind of helped you relate and connect with your fans?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they like that, of course. And the songs that I'm writing again are some of them are deeper than others. They're not super deep. Some of them are just fun and maybe even comedic. but some of them are more serious and, but always sincere. And I think that's what people are, especially in this genre, this kind of, I always think of like blues, Americana roots, like that's the working class genre. And I think that's what people like, that they get to know you through the songs. And then they get to know you because you're accessible at the shows. And it kind of all goes together, like, oh, okay, I'm not much different from the music that you're listening to.
Right.
It's not, there's no character being portrayed here. There's no costume being worn.
Yeah. I mean, one of the big things that I kind of took away from it is when you were 32, you moved out of St. Louis and you went to Texas, and then you wrote a song about it. And even though it's a pretty serious topic, the song, I don't know, the song didn't feel super heavy. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to say like a light story. It wasn't like overloading, but I was able to
Yeah.
kind of take away what you were talking about, which was kind of sobriety and recovery and everything, and then
Yes. Yes.
everything that sort of helped you
And
move ahead.
and doing that in Texas, and which is not an uncommon thing. Not necessarily maybe sobriety or whatever, but historically people have all the way back to the 1800s, 1700s, people have run away to Texas from the colonies and to start over when they kind of screwed up, their life wherever they were. It was a place that they would go. So that's a term, it's a term.
Yeah,
Texas.
from like the 19th century. That's been around for a
Yeah,
very long time.
right. So it's, you mentioned it's not overloaded. That's important to me because John Fogerty, that's my hero. Straightforward, 3-4 chords, and then he's got the truth in there, and that's it. And everybody can sing along. I think that's as good as it gets. That's the music I want to hear, and it's the music I want to play.
Right.
For sure.
So I know we just talked about it just a second ago. And saying like gone to Texas is just it's like a phrase. A lot of people have done it over time. Why did you specifically choose Texas? Did you have like roots there, or was it just something
No,
else?
it was all happen chance and weird.
Okay.
I guess to use a word, fate, weird fate. I didn't. I was out on the run, kind of semi-homeless, and I was down in Florida, and on drugs, and left my family behind, and just kind of flopping around. And I had, after working at that music store song, I had a friend at Fender, and I was like, yeah, I gotta do something. I gotta figure something out and get my life together here. And I just sent him an email, and he said, hey, we're looking for people in Fender. You'd be perfect. You demo guitars. And so I reached out to, he helped me get an interview, and I reached out to him, and they hired me, and they wanted to move me to Texas.
Right on.
That's where I would be their guy. And ironically, I had just met a girl right before I ran away from St. Louis. I met a girl in St. Louis who is from Texas, and she gave me her phone number. And so I was like, oh man, this is great. I'm going to move to Texas and look that chick up because she doesn't know I'm a drug addict, and I can take advantage of a new person.
Yeah, fresh start. Why not?
Fresh, yeah, exactly. And so it was like a whole starting over, and it didn't work out that way. It worked out way better. So, of course, I didn't work at Fender very long. Within 5 or 6 months, they fired me because I wasn't doing the job. But it got me to Texas, and it got me to her, and we've been together 20 years. So,
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it worked out pretty well.
yeah, it was pretty great.
Yeah. So during 2020, we had COVID-19 canceling any public events and performances, and during the lockdown period, you released Quarantine Blues. And I had an interview with Tinsley Ellis, and he told me sort of like his schedule. He'd go down anytime between 7 a.m. until noon and work on that album. What was your schedule like when working on Quarantine Blues?
Yeah, that was pretty different. It was more, we were on tour and we were coming home after only doing 3 or 4 shows in Europe, and everybody was going home absolutely broke, and I was going home, in the red because I lost all the money on the plane tickets and had to buy emergency tickets to get us the hell out of Germany, or we were going to get stuck there for COVID. And in a wild moment, sitting in a hotel in Berlin, like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And we had to quarantine. I mean, they told us you're going to go home and you got to lock yourself in a room for 2 weeks. That was all new. It was like, oh, this is crazy. What's this? And I said, hey, I got to lock myself in the studio. So we should make a record. Like, what if we made a record that we gave away for free, and we did like a GoFundMe and tell the fans what's going on, and that the band's going home broke, and maybe they'll want to help us, and we'll give them a free record in return. And the plan was, well, we got to write it, record it, produce it, and release it in 2 weeks. So my goal was, I'm sorry, this thing's loud here. We gotta have the album done by the time the quarantine is done. So that's what we did, which is crazy.
Right.
I mean, we literally wrote, recorded, and released that album in the 2 weeks that we were locked down. And nobody was in the same house. So everybody had to do it, their part on their own, and send it back and forth to me. It was never did a record like that before, I'll just tell you.
Yeah.
Ever. But we did it, and it turned out pretty good.
Yeah, I think
And
people did like it.
The fans were wonderful. Little did we know it was going to go on for 2 more years, but our fans were fantastic, and they raised so much money. It was too much. We weren't being greedy. We got enough money that I could give the guys money, so that it kind of covered their trip, and it paid for the plane tickets, and then it just kept coming, and it was like, well, let's help other musicians. So we ended up rolling that over into a thing called Paying the Blues Forward, and we were able to help another, I think we raised almost $40,000, like something ridiculous. I mean,
Wow.
to me, that's a lot of money. And we ended up sharing the rest with like 25 other musicians who all got, $1,000 a piece, all these out of work musicians. So it was a weird time, but wonderful, also. Like, it was, I look back and think, I hope that never happens again, but that was pretty great, how everybody came together. And you definitely can't make an album like that again at all, because I don't know that situation will ever happen like that again. So that was an interesting project.
Yeah. Is the concept of paying it forward important for you?
Yeah, I think always it is, for sure. Be just out of in recovery, and having so many people help me and do things for me, and I think it's important that I do things for people. And, it always works out well when we do other things for people. It's amazing what works out for us. So
Yeah, I mean, it's working out pretty well so far, I'd say. $40,000? I still can't believe that. That is like a huge. I'm just like an average dude, so $40,000 is a ton of money.
It's a lot of money. I
Yeah.
am too. It's a lot of money, and the fact that we were able to do so much for so many people with that money, it really went a long way. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. So with Blues for the South Side, that's your third live album, and you played it in St. Louis at the Old Rock House the day after Thanksgiving in 2021. What influenced you to make a live album so shortly after kind of all these lockdown stuff going on?
Well, things were opening up, and we could tell, like, we were going to be out this year, and I was on Gulf Coast Records, and all of these songs that we play kind of regularly in the show that people love, they're on other record labels, and I thought we should do a live album and record all these songs. So I have a copy on our label, and why not do it at home in St. Louis, and make it a whole event, and it turned out really good.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Mississippi Nights, and then of course my personal favorite song that's on that, like the live, is Blues for the South Side, which I don't know why. I really vibed with
Thank
that
you.
song. It hit like good.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's the only original piece of music, like new music, on there, and it was, the idea was just, wouldn't it be cool to have like an instrumental or something that just kind of has the little bit of the feel of the desperation of growing up in South St. Louis, where it's life's a little harder there, you know.
Yeah. Why'd you choose the Old Rock House?
Oh, it's just, I know those guys forever. I played there many, many, many times. The guys that run that club used to run a club called Mississippi Nights that was there since the '70s, that we saw every great concert at ever. Like, I like the neighborhood area where it's at, and the fans like going there. That's a good spot. Some of the other places we play in St. Louis are not on the south side. That is on the south side. I mean, I don't want to make that record and like go to a different part of the city.
Yeah, you wouldn't exactly put
I
Blues
wanted to
from
be
the
in.
South Side in the North Side, you know?
Right, exactly.
Uh, I'm not entirely sure of, the timeline for when live events started sort of becoming a thing again, but had you done any live shows before doing that recording?
Oh, we did. Yeah, I mean, we worked all through 2020 and 2021. Not normal, well, especially 2020. But we did tour in 2020. I mean, over the summer, it was just very different type of touring. We played around Texas, we played in Nebraska, we played in Missouri, we played in Florida, and they were all like outdoor shows.
Were they sort of
Where,
like boothed off from each other, like 6 feet between groups of
yeah,
people?
there was like some places like that did like, like these like drive-in shows, and then some of them were just, it depends on what state it was in. But they would, as long as they were all outside on a patio, they maybe didn't say anything. It was kind of weird, So we had played around a lot, and in 2021 we played a lot more. We even went to Europe in 2021. So by the time we did this show, we had kind of been working full time almost again, you know.
Yeah. How'd you feel when you were able to play in front of live crowds again, though?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I loved it. I loved it.
I can
And,
only imagine.
I mean, I wanted to be safe, and I didn't want anybody to get sick, and we didn't want to get sick, and but at the same time, it was like I felt comfortable almost all the time
Right.
that we played, and it was really great to be in front of people again.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And speaking of playing live, you're going to be performing for the Pavilion in the Pines Concert Series. That's in Tuckerton, New Jersey, which is August 21st at 7:30 p.m. How do you feel about coming to the East Coast?
Oh, I love it. We love the East Coast. Great blues fans, great music fans. Always, uh, always great response. Everybody's so emotional about the music. So I love it. It'll be a great show.
Have you played in this area before?
I have, yes.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Have you already come up with like a set list or anything?
No, not yet. But usually it's a little like the blues from the South Side. You know, we do a lot of different songs off the different albums. You know, when you have that many albums, it's hard to you can't do them all. We only have a couple hours, so it's try to play some of the new songs, and we play like sometimes I call it the title track tour. You know, we do the title track off of a whole bunch of records.
Hey man,
uh,
that sounds perfectly fine to me.
but it works. Yeah, it works.
Yeah. All right, Mike. I know you're a busy guy. Thank you for coming on and giving time to talk about parts of your life, your music, and your career. And for everyone that's interested, where can we find your music, and where are some upcoming locations that you'll be playing?
Yeah. Well, you can go to mikezito.com, just my name, and there's links to all the music there. Of course, there's an online store if you want to buy like physical CDs or records. But if you're not into that, you can go on Apple Music or Spotify or YouTube or any of them. You can certainly go and stream them. And I usually like to go and stream records, and then when I find one I like, then I go buy it. That's kind of my MO. Um, I always think that's a good deal. And we're playing this week again, like you said. We're on the East Coast, and we'll be in Tuckerton on Sunday. We go out to Las Vegas next week for the Big Blues Bender. And the following week, we'll go to Romania if you're in that area. So if you're in Eastern Europe, come see me.
Yeah, I think in September you also have like a mostly European tour. Like I think you're going to Germany, Switzerland, a whole bunch of places.
Yeah, yeah. We'll do our fall European run for sure.
Oh, that's going to be really exciting. Well, all right, Mike, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much again for doing this. I really appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you for having me on. It was my pleasure.